Commander Jake did not like surprise meetings, especially when they began before artificial dawn on the human diplomatic ship Aurora's Way. The corridors still glowed with soft night lights, and most of the crew moved slowly, half awake, as he walked toward the main briefing room. He walked with quick, steady steps, trying not to show his annoyance. His uniform jacket hung open at the collar, and his dark hair was still slightly messy from sleep. Outside the narrow viewports along the corridor, the stars of Council space shone like frozen sparks. Far away, a pale blue light marked the distant position of the Central Council station, where millions of minds and voices tried to keep a fragile peace between 100 very different species. Jake had seen a lot during his time in space, but he could feel that something was different now. The recall order had come with an unusual seal, not from the Council's normal diplomatic branch, not from the military. It carried the mark of the High Assembly itself. He slowed as he reached the briefing room doors. Two tall security officers stood outside. They were not human. Their skin looked like polished stone, with faint glowing lines under the surface. They were members of an old and respected species known for calm logic and firm discipline. One of them inclined his head. "Commander, you may enter. The others are waiting." Jake nodded, took a breath, and stepped through the doors. Inside, the room's lights were dimmer than usual. A wide oval table filled the center, surrounded by chairs shaped to fit different bodies and limbs. At the far end of the room, a transparent wall revealed a view of the Council station in the distance. It hung like a metal ring in the dark, with many smaller lights drifting around it. Jake's eyes first went to the familiar human face at the near side of the table. The ship's chief sat with a tablet in front of her. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple tail, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she had not slept at all. "Morning, Commander," she said, trying to give him a small smile. "Or whatever time this is supposed to be." "Morning," Jake replied. "Any idea why the High Assembly dragged us out of bed?" Her smile faded. She gave a small shake of her head. "Not exactly. I was only told it is about language, and that it is serious." Jake took the seat next to her. Across from them sat three alien figures, each very different from the others. A thin, gray-skinned with large black eyes and long fingers. A broad-shelled whose thick arms rested heavily on the table. And a tall, golden-feathered Sarai whose wings folded close along her back. At the end of the table, a taller chair rose slightly above the others. In it sat Councillor Varix a senior member of the High Assembly. His stone-like skin glowed faintly, and the lines of light across his face shifted slowly in patterns that Jake had learned to read as emotion. Right now, those lights were tight and sharp, the equivalent of tension. "Commander, Specialist," Varix said, his voice low and smooth. "Thank you for coming quickly." Jake straightened in his seat, closing his jacket. "We did not know we had a choice, Counselor. Your seal was very clear." A soft sound rippled through the room from the representative, something between a grunt and a sigh. Glanced at Jake, warning in her eyes, and he gave a small nod. He could be honest, but he needed to be careful. "We are gathered here," Varix continued, "because the High Assembly has received information that affects the status of your world and your species. Effective 2 hours ago, all ongoing negotiations involving Earth have been temporarily paused." His eyes widened. "Paused all of them?" "Yes," Varix said. "Trade discussions, military cooperation talks, cultural exchange agreements, all are under review until we can understand the full meaning of what has been discovered." Jake felt a cold weight drop into his stomach. "Counselor, that is a serious move. Earth has been a member of the Council for years. We have troops fighting beside yours. We share technology. We host embassies on our soil. What could possibly justify freezing everything without warning?" Varix looked at him for a long moment. His glowing lines shifted again, not in anger but in something like regret. "We will explain," the counselor said. "But first I must ask you both a question." He folded his long fingers together on the table. "What," Varix asked, "is the true name of your world?" Jake blinked. "Our world's name is Earth," he said. "You know that, it is in every database." "Yes," Varix said, "but that is not what I am asking. Many worlds have multiple names, formal designations, old words from ancient times, sacred titles. When your species first spoke into the dark, when you sent your earliest signals, what did you call your world? What did you call yourselves?" Frowned and tapped her tablet. "This sounds like something from pre-contact records," she said. "Old radio broadcasts, first probes, that sort of thing. But those records have been open to the Council for a long time. Why ask about them now?" The representative leaned forward. Her large black eyes reflected the table's soft light. "Because we found something you did not know you had sent," she said quietly. Jake looked from one alien to another. "Found where?" "In the ruins of an old relay station," Varix said. "A station built by a species that died out long before your world learned to burn coal. The station has drifted on the edges of Council space for ages. Most believed it empty. But an exploration team found an archive, locked beneath layers of security." His head tilted. "An archive?" "An encrypted linguistic repository," Varix said. "A record of contact messages, names and titles recorded over. A library of what other species chose to call themselves when they first reached beyond their own skis." The Sarai representative's feathers rustled softly, a sign of nervousness. "The archive includes filters," she added, "warnings, flags set by the original owners. Some names were marked as harmless, some as cautious, and some as forbidden." Jake felt the cold weight in his stomach grow heavier. He could see where this was going now, even if he did not yet know how. "And you found Earth there," he said. Varix nodded slowly. "We did not find Earth as you know it," he answered. "We found a phonetic pattern that matches the sound you use, but in that archive it was not listed as a simple world name. It was listed as a title, a concept, a designation carried across many records, each from different times and different empires." His fingers tightened around her tablet. "A title?" she asked. "What kind of title?" Varix hesitated. The glow beneath his skin shifted again, now with a faint flicker Jake had never seen in the counselor before. "Fear." "We are still decoding the deeper layers," he said. "But the closest approximation in your language would be this, that Earth does not simply mean the ground beneath your feet. It means the place that endures, the point that does not yield, the world that survives when others fall." He paused. "Or in older and less polite translations," he added softly, "the name for the storm that breaks the sky." There was silence in the room. Even the hum of the ship system seemed to fade into the background. Jake tried to process the words. He had fought in 3 border wars, survived close calls, and seen human ships stand firm against impossible odds. He knew humans could be stubborn. He knew they could be fierce when cornered. But this was different. "You are saying," Jake said slowly, "that somewhere out there, long before we ever left our world, other species were already using our planet's name as a kind of warning." "Not exactly your planet's name," the corrected gently. "The sound of your name, the pattern. It appeared in multiple languages across many ages. It was never attached to a single star or set of coordinates. It existed as a story, a legend in the margins of the archive." Swallowed. "A legend about what?" The Sarai looked away toward the stars outside the transparent wall. Her golden feathers lay flat against her back. "A legend about a people who rise from a small, unremarkable world," she said quietly. "A people who adapt to every hardship, who do not stop, even when they are broken, who rebuild from ashes again and again until they stand over the ruins of those who once thought themselves unshakable." Jake let out a short, humorless breath. "That sounds like the way some human historians like to talk about us," he said. "But it is just that, history, pride. We are not some myth from an alien ghost story. That is what we believed as well, Varric said, until we checked the timing. He turned his hand, and a small projection flickered to life above the center of the table. Lines and dots formed a star map. A pulsing blue light marked the position of Sol, Earth's star. Around it, old transmission paths appeared, thin lines spreading into the dark. "These are your earliest radio messages," Varric said. "Most of them weak, scattered, lost in noise. But some reached old listening posts built by species that no longer exist. Those posts stored the signals, translated them, and added the name you used for yourselves to their archive." The projection shifted. New lines appeared, older and dimmer, connecting distant points of space. Strange symbols marked the locations of long-dead civilizations. "These are records from the archive we recovered," Varric continued. "Every time the forbidden pattern appears, it is linked to a similar description. A people that rise late, from a world most dismiss as unimportant. A people who are slow to enter the stars, but once they do, they spread like heat from a fire." Looked at the map, then at Varric's. "But how could they describe us so exactly?" she asked. "They died out ages ago. They could not have known we would exist." "We do not know," Varric said simply. "We only know that by chance or by something we do not understand, your chosen name matches their most feared legend. And when the linguists compared the phonetic markers, the match was almost perfect." Jake studied the projection. A thin red ring appeared around Sol, and small warning icons blinked into place on nearby systems. "What are those?" he asked. "Updated threat calculations," the representative said. His thick voice rumbled through the room. "After the archive was decoded, the High Assembly ordered a full review of your species. Not of your weapons, not of your fleets, of your behavior, your history, your patterns." And Jake asked, "And they match the legend's core traits more closely than any other known species," Varric said. "Rapid adaptation to new environments, high tolerance for loss, strong cooperative behavior under pressure, a tendency to push into dangerous territories even when warned not to." He folded his hands again. "Commander," he said, "Specialist, the High Assembly now believes there is a non-zero chance that your world is the one the archive refers to, the one old empires warned each other about." Let out a small, nervous laugh. "You are afraid of us because of a superstition." "Not just a superstition," they said. "It is not only the legend that troubles us. It is the reactions of other species in the past. When the pattern appeared in their own languages, they recorded what happened next." The projection shifted again. Brief notes appeared beside the markers of several extinct civilizations. Each note contained a short line of translated text. "Here," Varric said, "this empire encountered the name in an intercepted signal. Within 3 centuries, their borders had shrunk by half, and they disappeared into internal conflict." Another note. "This one," he continued, "faced a sudden series of uprisings among their subject worlds, all of which referred to the same myth. Half their fleet defected. Their star forges went cold." Another note, older still. "And this one," Varric said, "the oldest of all, they never met the people of the legend. They only prepared for them, built walls, strengthened armies, closed their trade routes. They changed everything to brace for a threat that never came. Their economy collapsed. They fell without a single shot fired." Jake's jaw tightened. "So the name alone caused panic, panic that led to their fall." "Yes," Varric said. "In many cases, the fear did more damage than any enemy fleet." He looked at Jake and in turn. "We now face a choice," he said. "If we ignore the archive and treat Earth as just another young member world, we may be unprepared if the legend has any truth to it. If we react strongly, if we restrict you, if we isolate you, we risk repeating the same pattern of fear that destroyed the empires before us." Leaned back in her chair, staring at the map. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. And so you froze all our negotiations, she said, because you are afraid of becoming like them. Yes, Varix answered. The High Assembly decided to halt everything until we could speak with you directly. We must understand how much you know, whether you have been hiding your true nature, whether this name, Earth, means to you what it meant to them. Jake exhaled slowly. We have not been hiding anything, he said. We chose the name Earth because that is what we have always called our world. It comes from old human languages. It means ground, soil, the place where we live. We never knew it carried any other meaning, not in your records, not in your myths. Varric studied his face closely. So you never heard of this legend? Jake shook his head. No, we have plenty of our own stories about being underdogs and survivors, but nothing about other species fearing our name before we even knew they existed. Nodded, our linguists combed through old transmissions when we joined the council, she said. If there was a hint of this in our own texts, we would have noticed. The room fell quiet. Outside the stars remained still, uncaring. Finally the Sarai spoke again. The problem remains, she said softly. Whether you know the legend or not, your actions still fit its shape. Your species has grown quickly. Your fleets, though small, have shown unusual resilience. You lose battles, yet your morale remains high. You experience hardship, yet your society does not break. That is not a crime, Jake said. That is survival. That is what every species does when facing struggle. Not every species, they said. Some bend, some fade, some accept limits. You do not seem to do that well. Jake thought of the early days of space travel, of crowded cities and scarce resources back on Earth, of how humans had argued and fought, and yet somehow kept moving forward. He thought of wars that had nearly torn his world apart, and of how, each time, humanity had chosen to rebuild. He could not deny what they were saying. Humans did push. Humans did resist. Humans did break limits when they could. So what happens now? He asked quietly. Varix turned off the projection. The star map vanished, leaving only the smooth surface of the table. Now, the counselor said, we watch, we measure. We look for more evidence in the archive. We study your past in more detail. We have already sent requests for deeper records to your home world. Jake's eyes narrowed. Requests or demands? Varix did not answer that directly. During this time, he said, no new military treaties will be signed with Earth. No expansion of your fleets will be approved near shared borders. Your research exchanges will continue, but under extra oversight. His hands tightened again. So you are putting us under quiet quarantine, she said. Not open, not public, but real. We are taking precautions, Varix replied. For your safety and for ours. There are species in this council who would react badly if they learned the full story. They already mistrust your kind. The legend would give them a reason to act rashly, to strike first. Jake felt a flicker of anger now. You are telling us that you fear us, but you also fear what others would do if they knew you fear us. Yes, Varix said simply. Jake leaned forward. Counselor, with respect, do you realize the position this puts us in? Earth spent years trying to prove we belong here. We fought beside your fleets. We bled with you. And now, because of an old story from a dead empire, we are suddenly a possible threat, a symbol from a myth. Varix met his gaze without looking away. You are more than a symbol, he said. You are real. That is what makes this so dangerous. Looked back down at her tablet. Slowly, an idea formed in her mind. She spoke it aloud before she could doubt herself. Let me see the raw data, she said. The original patterns from the archive, the phonetic roots, the translations, all of it. The tilted her head. You wish to verify our work. I wish to understand it, said. I am a linguist. This is what I do. If our world's name truly matches this ancient title, I want to know how and how closely. Maybe there is another explanation, a shared root, a convergent sound, something that makes sense without turning my entire species into a prophecy. Varix was quiet for a moment. The light beneath his skin shifted slowly, patterns turning over like thoughts. Sharing the raw archive with a member of the species in question is not standard protocol, he said. Nothing about this situation is standard, Jake said. The counselor gave a slow, small nod. That is true, he admitted. Very well. Under supervised conditions, you may examine the data specialist. We will arrange a secure link to the council station's deep archives, but you may not copy the files. You may only work within the sealed system. That is enough, said. If there is something we are missing, I will find it. Jake looked at her. He could see the determination in her eyes, bright even through the fatigue. And what about me? He asked. What do you want from a soldier in all this? Varix turned his attention back to him. We want you to keep your people calm, he said. Do not let word of this spread without guidance. If fear takes hold on your own world, it could be as dangerous as the legend is to us. Your leaders will be informed through secure channels, but the average person on Earth, on your colonies, does not need to know that half the council believes they might be a story come to life. Jake almost smiled at that, but there was no humor in it. And if the legend is true, he asked softly. Varix's glowing lines dimmed. Then we will need you to remember something, he said. Even in the old archive, the feared people did not conquer because they hated. They changed the stars because they would not stop living. They did not set out to break empires. They only refused to stay broken themselves. He unfolded his hands and placed them flat on the table. If Earth truly is that world, he said, then we must find a way for your nature to protect the council, not tear it apart. We must make your stubborn survival a shield instead of a hammer. Jake considered that. He thought of the men and women under his command. He thought of the families back home, of streets and fields and oceans under a sky that, for most people, still looked the same as it had 1,000 years ago. I cannot promise what all of humanity will do, he said at last. We are complicated, but I can tell you this. We did not come out here to be someone else's nightmare. We came because we wanted more than one sky. We came because we were tired of almost destroying ourselves. We wanted to be better. Looked at him, then at Varix. And if the galaxy insists on seeing us as a story, she added quietly, maybe we can help write a different ending this time. Varix gave a slow nod. That is what we hope, he said. The meeting ended not with a clear decision, but with a feeling of heavy, uncertain pause. Jake and left the briefing room together, walking once more through the dim corridors of the Aurora's Way. As they moved, the artificial lights shifted from night mode to day cycle. The ship systems hummed a little louder, waking fully. Crew members stepped out of side passages, greeting them with casual nods and half-smiles, unaware of the conversation that had just taken place. Jake looked at. So, he said quietly, our planet's name might be an old word for the storm that breaks the sky. Let out a long breath. I spent my whole life studying languages, she said. I thought names were just what we agreed to call things. I did not expect one to come with a warning label from extinct empires. He gave her a sideways glance. You going to be all right? She nodded slowly. I will be busy, she said. That helps. If there is a mistake in that archive, I will find it, and if there is not, she trailed off, then shrugged. Then we will deal with it, like we always do. They reached a junction where their paths split. Jake paused. He said, whatever happens next, remember this. We are still us. We are still the same species that sent clumsy, hopeful radio waves into space because we were lonely. We are still the ones who put a plaque on a metal probe and pushed it into the dark with drawings of who we are and where we live. She smiled faintly, a real smile this time. I know, she said. Maybe that is the part of us the old stories never saw. She turned down the corridor toward the data labs. He watched her go for a moment, then headed toward the command deck. Behind them, far beyond the ship, the council station floated in its slow orbit. Deep inside its core, in locked vaults of memory, the ancient archive waited. It held names from 1,000 dead worlds, and one living one that now echoed through quiet halls of power. Earth. The word lingered in more minds than it had the day before. On some distant worlds, hidden listening posts flagged the subtle changes in council traffic and began to whisper to their own masters. 7 fleets shifted their courses by fractions of degrees. 3 trade routes were quietly rerouted around human space. And on one small blue world, under a familiar sky, billions of humans continued their everyday lives, unaware that somewhere far above them, the sound of their home's name had made an ancient council begin to panic. Sat alone in the deep analysis chamber, a quiet room buried inside the council station's data wing. The air felt cool and dry, and the soft blue glow of the interface panels washed over her face. In front of her floated layers of strange symbols, sound charts, and shifting lines of translated text. A overseer named Sorrel stood several steps behind her, watching in calm silence. His presence was a reminder that she was a guest here, not in full control. Even so, the council had given her access to more information than any human had seen before. She focused on the center of the display, where the phonetic sequence that matched the word Earth slowly pulsed. The pattern did not look simple. It was made of sound markers that overlapped in strange ways, as if the name had been spoken and reshaped by many mouths across long ages. Whispered the translated version softly to herself. It did not sound like English or any human language she knew. Still, the meaning was clear in the layered notes beside it. Enduring place. Standing point. The ground that refuses. Her fingers moved across the controls, opening side records linked to the same pattern. Each record came from a species that no longer lived. Their languages were gone. Their stars were cold. Yet their fear still lingered in how they had described what this name meant to them. Sorrel finally spoke. "Do you find error in our work so far?" he asked. "I find history," replied without looking back. "A lot of frightened history." She opened a new file, one marked as fragmentary. The translation scrolled slowly. "The people of the ground rise slow, but do not stop. Hurt them and they learn. Break them and they chain. Leave them and they return stronger." Read the lines twice. "This does not even describe an enemy," she said quietly. "It describes pressure and response." "Pressure and response can become war," Sorrel replied. "Yes, but pressure and response can also become growth," she said. "Humans became what they are because we were never comfortable. We had disease, hunger, storms, cold. We did not overcome those by sitting still." Sorrel's glowing lines shifted slightly. "Your argument is noted, but the pattern remains. Your name appears in connection with profound change." Leaned back in her chair, letting out a slow breath. "Change is not always destruction," she said. "Sometimes it is just survival." Beyond the chamber, the council station continued its silent spinning. And deep within the high chambers, conversations filled with concern spread from mind to mind. Far across the void, Commander Jake stood on the bridge of the Aurora's Way, watching a stream of sensor readings scroll past. The stars outside the wide forward window looked the same as always, calm, eternal. It was his own situation that felt unstable. His second officer, a young woman named Pierce, approached him with a quiet step. "Commander, we are getting strange traffic patterns on the outer monitoring channels." He turned his head slightly. "Strange how?" "Civilian lanes are shifting course," she said. "Several freight vessels adjusted their paths without stating reason. Their flight plans are still legal, but the pattern looks cautious." Jake knew what that meant. "The rumor has started," he murmured. Glanced at him. "Rumor of what, sir?" "Of us," he said simply. "Or at least of something about us that makes people nervous." Another officer, Ben Carter, looked up from his station. "No official notices yet. The council net says everything is stable." That does not mean they are not talking behind closed doors, Jake said. It means they have not decided what to say in public. He folded his arms loosely. The ship was in perfect shape. The crew performed their duties with steady care. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. Inside his mind, however, tension pulled like a tight wire. Hours later, returned to the ship without fanfare. Jake met her near the docking hall, where soft lights framed the smooth curve of the entrance. "You look like you are thinking too hard," he said as she stepped off the transport ramp. "I probably am," she replied, giving a tired half-smile. "That archive is the most detailed collection of ancient language I have ever seen, and also the most unsettling." He fell into step beside her. "So, myth or misunderstanding?" She sighed. "It is not as simple as I hoped. The phonetic pattern does match our word Earth more closely than I like, but the meaning shifted each time it was translated. For some species it meant the place of hard learning. For others it meant the source of stubborn life. For a few it meant a breaking force." "And which version is correct?" Jake asked. "All of them," she said, "or none. It depends on who is telling the story and how scared they already are." They walked slowly down the corridor, passing crew members who smiled and nodded, unaware of the weight behind their calm faces. Continued, "What bothers me most is that the oldest records are the least violent. They spoke of balance, of renewal. The later ones are full of warning and fear. It looks less like the name changed and more like the storytellers did." Jake considered that. Fear has a way of turning anything into a threat. "Yes," she said, "and the Council is afraid right now." Not long after, a secure communication came through from Earth itself. Jake stood in the private briefing room as the image of Deputy Director Alan Brooks appeared on the hollow screen. He looked worried but controlled. "Commander," Brooks said, "we received filtered notice that the High Assembly has paused our negotiations. We are told there is a linguistic concern linked to our planetary designation. That is a strange way to put it." "That is one way to describe it," Jake said. "They found an ancient archive that treats the sound of our world's name as a mythic title, not just a label. They are unsure how to respond." Brooks frowned. "So they are scared of our name?" "Of what they believe it represents," Jake replied. "Endurance, change, refusal to stay broken." "That seems like a compliment more than a threat," Brooks said. "It would be nice if they saw it that way," Jake said. Brooks leaned closer to his screen. "Official position from Earth is simple. We cooperate. We stay calm. We do not challenge or insult the Council. At the same time, we do not accept unfair treatment. Balance is the goal." "Understood," Jake said. "We will keep our posture neutral." When the connection ended, Jake remained still for a moment, letting the silence settle. Out there, entire fleets adjusted course. Here, a conversation about syllables and sound carried the weight of possible war or peace. Days passed, and the quiet tension continued to grow. Small details changed first. Invitations to council social events became less frequent. Exchange officers received polite delays. Shared research teams were asked to submit longer approval forms. Noticed these changes more than most. She spent her time between the ship and the council archives, each visit adding new layers of understanding and unease. One day, while scanning a rare audio fragment, she discovered something different. The record was not a warning, it was a song. A soft, uneven melody played from ancient speakers, broken by static and time. The translated text below it read, "They come from the soil with hands full of scars, and they build gardens on the ruins. When fire takes their homes, they plant seeds in ash." Listened twice, then a third time. Her heart tightened for reasons she could not fully explain. She called Sorrel over. "This does not sound like fear," she said. "It sounds like respect." They examined the file. "It is one of the few positive records," he admitted. The source species was known for observing rather than conquering. They vanished peacefully, according to our historians. Maybe they understood something others did not, she said softly. When she returned to the ship that evening, she told Jake about the song. He listened in silence, his expression serious. They saw us as builders, not destroyers, he said. At least some of them did, she replied. Which means this story does not have to end badly unless someone forces it to. Events soon proved that not everyone wanted patience. Within the council, a smaller group of worlds pushed for stronger measures. They argued in private chambers that danger should be met before it grew too strong. Their whispers reached human ears through unofficial channels. Heard of emergency proposals. Jake heard of fleet exercises moving closer to shared space. Then one night, the ship's alarm system pulsed softly, indicating a priority call. Jake hurried to the command deck, where Pierce already stood, eyes fixed on the main display. "We just received a proximity warning," she said. 3 foreign ships just entered extended surveillance range. They are not hostile yet, but they are not following normal council escort patterns either. Jake narrowed his eyes. "Which species?" She said, "Known for strict control doctrine." His jaw tightened. They were not open enemies, but they were known for preemptive defense and sharp caution. "Open a channel," he said. The screen flickered, and the angular face of a commander appeared. His tone was flat and formal. "This is Commander of the Fleet Patrol. You are advised that your vessel is nearing a zone under temporary security observation. Maintain your current course and speed. Any deviation will be noted." Jake kept his voice even. "Aurora's Way is within regulated council space with full operational clearance. We are not deviating." "Your clearance is acknowledged," replied. "However, new risk evaluations have been applied in light of recent findings." Jake did not miss the implication. "So you have also heard about the archive," he said. "Our command is aware that your designation appears in unstable mythic records," answered. "Until greater certainty exists, observation will continue." The screen went dark. Looked at Jake. "They are scared, sir." "Yes," he said, "and scared people sometimes make stupid choices." Back on Earth, the same quiet shift could be felt in small ways. News reports spoke of increased diplomatic review but avoided detail. Analysts spoke in soft terms. Regular people went about their lives, unaware that their world's name now made councils whisper. In orbit sat alone again, replaying the ancient song. Her eyes closed as the soft melody filled her mind, connecting past voices to present truth. "Who were you really afraid of?" she whispered to the long-dead singers. "Us or yourselves?" At the same time, Jake stood at the bridge window, staring at the scattered stars. He knew that somewhere out there, people were deciding whether humanity was a partner or a coming storm. He thought of Earth, of simple cities, blue oceans, open skies, of children running through parks, unaware of distant councils and ancient myths. He thought of history, of how humans had always walked forward even when the road burned beneath their feet. "We are not their nightmare," he said quietly to himself. "We are just still learning how to stand." Yet the galaxy did not care about how humans saw themselves. It cared about patterns, fear, and old warnings written in the dust of forgotten empires. In shadowed chambers, votes weighed heavier. Advisors spoke in coded language, adjusted. Distant sensors tracked human movements with growing interest. And deep within the archive, the ancient name continued to echo in silent currents of data, shaping decisions no one on Earth had any idea were being made. The Council did not yet choose to strike. It also did not choose to trust. It remained suspended between caution and curiosity, between memory and reason. And humanity, still unknowing, continued to breathe, build, argue, and dream beneath the same old sky, while far above, every syllable of its world's name grew heavier than ever before. The tension on the Aurora's way did not vanish. It settled into every quiet moment and every small pause between words. Crew members still laughed and worked, but their voices carried more care than before, as if the air itself had grown thin. Jake stood in the observation corridor looking out at the slow-moving curve of the council station. Lights blinked along its outer ring. Ships moved like careful insects around a sleeping giant. Nothing looked different, yet everything felt changed. Behind him, Pierce stepped closer. "Commander," she said softly, "we have another message from Council Traffic Control. They want us to adjust our patrol distance again." Jake frowned again. "Yes, sir. They are asking us to increase the buffer radius by another 20%. He let out a slow breath. "We are being pushed further out." "Yes." Jake nodded. "Comply for now, but record every change. I want a full log." Hesitated. "Do you think this will get worse?" "It can," he said simply. "Fear grows if no one challenges it." On the council station, sat in a wider chamber than before. This room held no archives, only a circular table and seats designed for different forms of life. She had been called to attend a special discussion with a mixed group of council members. Sorrel stood near the entrance while several other figures gathered around the table. Among them was a lean, pale-skinned representative known for calm speech and careful logic. "You asked for deeper context," said as took her seat. "You will now hear why some members seek stronger action." Folded her hands together. "I would like to hear it in plain language, not just coded warnings." Nodded. "That is fair, then I will speak plainly." He touched a control on the table, and a projection filled the air. It showed a dying system, stars flickering weak and cold. "This record is not legend," said. "It is history. It shows a border species that came into contact with a civilization shaped by the same name pattern as yours." Leaned forward. "And what happened?" "They were not attacked," he said. "Not at first. The species expanded, slowly, persistently. They took resources others had ignored. They adapted where no one else could. Over time, nearby worlds found their agreements tested, their dominance challenged, their old structures weakened. They grew afraid and tried to force control." He paused. "That is when conflict began," he added. "So the conflict came from fear, not a rival," said. "Yes," replied, "but the result was still the same: collapse, change, a new order none had planned for." "And you think that is what humans will do?" she asked. "We do not know," he said. "That uncertainty pushes some members toward harsh decisions." Sat back slowly. "You are letting a pattern decide our future. That is not justice. That is habit wearing the mask of wisdom." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And you are asking us to ignore patterns that have cost entire systems their stability." "I am asking you to see that fear creates its own prophecy," she replied. Silence filled the chamber. Sorrel remained still, as if weighing both sides without words. Back on the Aurora's way, Jake received a new update from Earth. This time the message came from a communications officer named Holt, who spoke with urgent calm. "Commander, satellite monitoring has detected increased foreign fleet drills near our shared borders. They are not within violation range, but they are closer than standard practice." Jake's expression hardened. "Which worlds are involved?" "Primarily, and 2 outer council members known for risk avoidance. So the cautious ones are preparing for a future that does not exist yet," he muttered. Gave a small nod. "Earth wants to know if you advise any movement toward defensive posture." Jake thought for a moment. "Tell them to stay steady. No sudden shows of strength. We do not want to look like we are proving their fears." "Understood," she said, and the signal closed. The next day returned once more to the archive. Deep within its layered memory, she found something new. A direct account recorded in careful script. The translation was slow, but clear enough to follow. "They did not seek conquest. Only space to breathe. But our elders feared their calm and turned distance into walls. Those walls became reasons. Those reasons became weapons. Sat still for a long time after reading it. Her heartbeat felt louder than the distant hum of machines around her. Sorrel spoke gently. You believe this supports your view. I believe it warns us, she said. It also warns us, he replied, that allowing expansion without limit can change entire power structures. Everything changes power structures eventually, said. That is not evil, that is life. Sorrel did not answer, but the glow beneath his skin softened. Later that night, on the Aurora's way, Jake met in the small common area near the crew quarters. The room was quiet, lit by soft ceiling panels. A few officers passed in the background, nodding politely. You look like you are carrying the weight of 12 suns, Jake said. She gave a tired smile. It feels like it sometimes. Find anything useful. Useful and troubling, she replied. There are records where humans or people like humans were seen as calm builders, and records where they were seen as silent disruptors of balance. Both exist. The difference is how the other side reacted. Jake leaned against the wall, meaning. If the surrounding powers tried to cage them, war followed. If they tried to understand them, coexistence happened, at least for a time. So peace depends more on them than us, he said. In these stories, yes. Jake looked down at the floor for a moment. That makes me more nervous, not less. Meanwhile, on the council station, debates became sharper. Certain voices rose louder than others. In one private session, a bold representative named Core spoke openly. If they are the storm from the legend, said, then waiting will only make the impact worse. We must contain now, before human influence spreads further. Others disagreed. They argued for patience, for observation, for trust. The High Assembly did not yet decide, but the air grew thicker with pressure. On Earth, normal people continued their days. A teacher named Maria explained basic math to quiet students. A mechanic named Tom Riley repaired a broken engine in a dusty workshop. A nurse named Lo checked vitals in a crowded clinic. None of them knew that the name of their world now sat connected to fear in cold alien halls. But small signs reached even them. News reports mentioned extended diplomatic reviews. Talk shows spoke of rising tension. Experts speculated. The word Earth was said more often, with strange weight behind it. Across space, the Council began sending survey drones into outer human-controlled sectors under the label of routine observation. Jake noticed unusual scans, though none crossed direct boundaries. Approached him again. Commander, the drones keep adjusting angle every time we reposition. They are watching how we adapt, he said. They want to see if we act defensive. Should we? She asked. Not unless they force us, he replied. In a quiet moment later that evening, Jake recorded a personal log he never planned to share publicly. He spoke in calm, even voice. If anyone ever hears this, understand that humans did not enter this space to shake the stars. We entered because we were curious, tired of our own limits, and hopeful. If they choose to see us as a myth instead of neighbors, that choice will shape more than our future. He ended the recording and sat in silence. Also kept her own records. She wrote down every phrase from the archives, every emotional tone she sensed behind ancient words. Late one night, she found a final line hidden inside an older dataset. Do not fear the ones who walk through fire. They only learn to live where you would not. Fear instead your own hesitation. For it builds walls no flame can warm. Tears touched the corner of her eyes before she brushed them away. The next morning, the High Assembly issued a limited notice. It was vague, careful, and public. In light of recent archival findings, the Council will conduct an extended review of protocol involving emerging member worlds. All current relations remain peaceful and stable. peaceful and stable, did not feel true to anyone who read between the lines. On the Aurora's way, Jake watched the announcement scroll across the main display. Crew members murmured quietly around him. "They never explain anything," Ben Carter said, "just enough to keep everyone guessing." "That is how power stays calm," Jake answered. "It refuses to show its fear." Hours later, returned again from the station. Her face was more focused, more determined. "They are moving closer to decision," she said quietly as they walked side by side. "I heard enough to know that." "Which way?" he asked. "Still divided," she said, "but fear usually grows faster than trust." Jake exhaled slowly. "Then we better give them something else to look at." She glanced at him. "Like what?" "Proof that we are not what their stories painted in the dark," he said. "We help, we share, we stay steady. We do not flinch and we do not threaten." Nodded, "We show them who we really are." On the far side of the council station, a quiet observer vessel logged every movement of the Aurora's way. In deeper chambers, translators pored over reports and the ancient texts side by side. Some began to see the threads of misunderstanding, but others clung to warning. Far from both, beyond human space and council borders, a silent listening beacon shifted its orientation. Its sensors gathered faint vibration from subspace traffic, tracing patterns that echoed the ancient name once more. The word Earth moved through communication streams like a tremor beneath stone. And inside fragile chambers of decision, where silence often spoke louder than voice, the galaxy waited while humanity stood unknowing, still balanced between myth and truth. On the night before the council made its choice, the station felt strangely quiet. The wide ring still turned. Lights still blinked. Ships still docked and departed. But inside certain halls, voices dropped low and footsteps slowed as if the walls themselves were listening. Sat alone at a small table in one of the human embassy rooms. A cup of cold tea rested beside her, forgotten. Her tablet screen showed lines of text from the ancient archive on one side and fresh notes from Earth on the other. A new report had arrived from human scientists. It came from two researchers on Earth, Mason Hill and Barnes. They worked in a small language institute in a crowded city, far from the stars. Yet their work now reached across light years. Read their summary again. "Our oldest words for Earth mean not only soil, but home, shared ground, place we stand together." Mason and had traced the human word through many tongues. They examined stories, songs, and prayers from centuries before. Over and over they found the same idea. Earth was not only dirt under feet. It was the place people protected even when they argued. It was the ground they promised to return to even when they left. Touch the screen, highlighting one line from their letter. "If the council fears our name, they must see that for us." It never meant conquest. It meant we survive by standing side by side. She smiled softly, simple words, clear meaning. The door signal chimed once, looked up as Jake stepped into the room. His face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. "You got the report?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Mason and did good work. They broke it down so even the most stubborn translator can follow it." He moved closer and leaned over to read. "Shared ground," he said. "I like that better than storm that breaks the sky." "So do I," she replied. He sat across from her. For a moment they were just two humans in a quiet room, far from home, carrying something too large for two people. "Tomorrow they hold the full session," Jake said. "High Assembly, major representatives, Security Council. They will argue about us in one big room instead of 10 small ones." "And they invited us," said. "Yes," he replied. "They want to hear our side before they vote." Took a slow breath. "Then we tell them everything, the archive, our own history, the songs from long ago, the fact that we are tired of almost destroying ourselves and do not want to start again with anyone else." Jake nodded. We tell them that Earth means home, not target, not weapon. The next cycle, the great chamber of the high assembly filled with sound and light. Seats rose in gentle tiers around a central open space. Some seats held solid forms. Others held shapes of vapor or fields of energy. Translation fields hummed, ready to turn words into meaning for 100 ears. At the center of the floor stood a clear platform. Two small figures waited there. Jake and looked very human, very simple compared to the strange and old beings around them. Counselor Varric stood on a raised ring above, in his place among the senior leaders. His stone-like skin glowed with steady light. The High Assembly is now in session, he said. We gather to decide how we respond to the discovery of an ancient pattern linked to the name of a current member world. The people of that world are present to speak. A low murmur moved through the chamber. Some eyes watched with cool interest. Others watched with quiet fear. Varric continued. The archive shows that the sound of the word Earth, or a close match, appears in records of species that no longer exist. In many of those records, the name is tied to great change. Some call it renewal, others call it ruin. The question before us is simple and heavy. Do we treat this as a warning that must be answered by control, or as a story that must be understood? He turned his gaze down to Jake and, Commander Specialist, you may speak. Jake stepped forward first. His voice, when it came, was calm and clear. Members of the Council, he said, I was born under a sky that knew no other stars. For most of my life, Earth was not a myth. It was a place with crowded cities, tired oceans, and hopeful people who could not yet see beyond their own clouds. He paused, letting translation fields carry his words outward. I joined our space service because I wanted to keep that sky safe, not to conquer new ones. Many humans are like me. We are loud sometimes. We push. We argue. But most of us just want our families to live better than we did. He let the room feel the simple truth of that. We did not choose our name to frighten anyone, he said. We chose it long before we knew you existed. For us, Earth meant the ground under everyone. Rich, poor, strong, weak. It meant home. He looked up at the glowing rings of leaders. You found your legends in an old archive, he said. That archive also showed that fear of a name can destroy a world before any enemy arrives. If you break your own trust because of a word, you will repeat their mistake. We do not want that. Not for us. Not for you. He stepped back, moved to his side. She held her tablet, but she did not read from it. Instead, she spoke from memory. My work is language, she said. I spend my days breaking down sounds and meanings and trying to see what they hide. When I looked at your archive, I saw many things. I saw fear. I saw pride. I saw regret. And once or twice, I saw love. The room grew very quiet. In your oldest records, she continued, the name that matches our word Earth was tied to balance, to planting after fire, to rebuilding after loss. Only later did it turn into a shadow on the wall. The name did not change. The fear did. She touched her tablet and projected a set of simple lines in the air. These are from the archive, she said. The translations appeared in council script. They plant seeds in ash. Do not fear the ones who walk through fire. They only learn to live where you would not. Then she changed the projection. And these are from our own history, she said, from our oldest songs about our world. New lines appeared. Whatever comes, this is our home. We fall and stand again. On the same ground. Looked around at the faces and forms watching her. We are not the ghosts from your warnings, she said. We are people who have made many mistakes and are trying very hard not to repeat them out here. We will change things just by being here. That is true. Any new species does, but we can choose how we change things. With you, not against you. A low sound, like distant wind, moved through the chamber as different species passed thoughts among themselves. One of the voices, Kor, rose from his seat. Your words are simple, said, but they do not erase patterns. Your species is young and grows fast. You adapt to every wound. You do not stop when warned. The archive is clear. Systems that face this pattern lost their balance. Why should we risk the same? Meta's gaze without flinching. Because you are not them, she said. You have their records, you have our presence. You can see the danger and choose a different path. His tone grew sharper. What if you are hiding your true nature? What if your kind turns on us once your fleets grow? Jake spoke again. We could ask the same about any of you, he said. Trust is always a risk. If we wanted to hide, we would not stand here explaining ourselves. We would build in silence. We are not building in silence. We are here. We are asking to be seen as what we are, not as a story written by someone who never met us. From a side seat spoke next. There is another option, said. We could remove the name from all records. We could assign a new formal title to your world, one without history, one without fear. A murmur rose. Some seemed to like this idea, others did not. Felt a cold weight in her chest at the thought. You mean erase our name, she said. Erase Earth. Only in official records, said. Your people could still use it at home, but in council systems, your world would carry a new designation. We would cut the pattern from the chain. Jake shook his head slowly. With respect, he said, that is not a solution. That is pretending. You cannot make fear vanish by covering the word you fear. You must change how you see it. Varix watched the exchange, his inner light shifting. What do you propose, then? The counselor asked. If we keep your name, the shadow remains. If we erase it, we wound your identity. Glanced at Jake, then looked back up. You keep it, she said, but you tell the full story. You add our meaning to your archive. You make Earth stand for shared ground, not only for the storm. You do not let old records be the only voice. Several beings spoke softly to one another. Translation fields worked hard. Frowned. You are asking us to trust that you will stay what you claim to be. Yes, Jake said, and we are asking that of you too. Trust goes in both directions. We know some of you already see us as a threat. We cannot change your minds with one speech, but we can offer an agreement that makes both sides responsible. Varix leaned forward slightly. What kind of agreement? Jake took a breath. An open survival pact, he said. We propose that Earth accepts a formal role as a stabilizing member. In exchange for full rights and open records, we accept extra duties. If there is conflict near our borders, we commit to de-escalation first. If our expansion threatens weaker worlds, we accept limits and share space. We put in writing that we will not seek empire. Look skeptical. Words are easy to write. Then make the pact hard to break, Jake said. Build checks into it. Shared oversight. Council observers on our frontier missions. We agree to more eyes on us if those eyes agree to see clearly and not through the old fear alone. Varix's light changed again, slow and thoughtful. Your leaders on Earth approved this idea, he asked. Yes, Jake said. They sent us here with that offer. They know history. They know we have walked close to self-destruction before. They also know we are good at helping each other when we finally see the cost of our pride. The chamber grew quiet once more as the High Assembly moved into private debate mode. Sound dropped. Shields of focused thought rose. Jake remained on the platform, alone in a ring of silent power. His hands trembled slightly. Jake shifted closer so that his shoulder almost touched hers, a small human anchor in a non-human storm. After a long time, the silence broke. Varix stood again. The High Assembly has reached a decision, he said. Every eye, every sensor turned toward him. We recognize that the name Earth carries weight beyond a single world, he said. We also recognize that erasing a name does not erase the people who bear it. We will not rewrite your identity. Instead, we will rewrite our understanding. A soft ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. By majority vote, Varix continued, the Council will adopt a new entry in the Central Archive. The pattern once listed as forbidden will now include two meanings. The old, which speaks of change and disruption, and the new, submitted by the people of Earth themselves, which speaks of shared ground and survival without conquest. He looked down at Jake and, in addition, he said, we accept your proposal for an open survival pact. Earth will receive full member protections and rights, and will also accept extra responsibility for its actions at the edge of Council space. Oversight conditions will be strict but fair. In return, no member may use the legend of your name alone as cause for attack or isolation. Several members clearly disliked this, but they did not hold the majority. Spoke once more, his tone flat. You have chosen trust, he said. We have chosen a path that does not repeat the mistakes of the dead, Varix replied. He turned to Jake and again. The Council will watch you, he said. We will watch how you build, how you fight, how you heal. Your name will stand in our records not as a simple label, but as a question you must answer with your actions. Jake inclined his head. We understand, he said. We will answer it the best we can. Felt a mix of relief and pressure settle over her. This was not a clean victory. It was not a simple, happy ending, but it was not the dark path either. Later, in a smaller meeting room, Varix spoke with them in private. You did well, he said. Many feared this day would end in walls, not agreements. We are grateful it did not, said. Jake added, some will still fear us. Yes, Varix said. Fear does not vanish in one vote, but now it must compete with something else, with knowledge, with your own records inside our archive. He looked at them both. Remember this, he said. Every time you act in the stars, you are teaching us what your true name means, not in theory, in practice. Back on Earth, in their small institute, Mason Hill and Barnes watched a delayed broadcast of the decision. Their names were barely mentioned, but their words were now part of the greatest archive in the galaxy. Laughed softly. We did not just send research notes, she said. We helped name home for an entire council. Mason smiled. We just wrote what was always true, he said. Earth was never about winning. It was about not giving up on each other. In the weeks that followed, changes unfolded slowly. Some fleets pulled back from human borders. Not all, but some. Trade routes that had shifted out of caution began to drift closer again. New agreements were drafted under the rules of the Open Survival Pact. On the Aurora's way, the crew relaxed by small degrees. Laughter in the corridors grew easier. The ship received new mission orders that took it not away from Council space, but deeper into it. One evening, Jake stood once more by the observation window, looking out at the stars. So, Jake said, we are officially the world with the heavy name. Smiled faintly. It was always heavy, she said. We just did not know who else had been carrying it in their stories. He watched a distant ship cross the field of stars. Do you think we can live up to what we promised? He asked. We will make mistakes, she said. We always do, but we can keep trying. That is what the archive said about us in all its twisted ways. We get hurt, we get lost, we get back up. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe that is what scared them the most, he said. Not our weapons, just our refusal to stay broken. Then we should use that for good, said. If we are hard to break, we can stand between others and the storm sometimes. Not as rulers, as shields. He looked at her, then back at the stars. I like that, he said. Earth, the place that stands. Ships came and went. Messages crossed the dark. In distant halls, old stories were told in new ways. Children on far-off worlds heard the name Earth and did not flinch as their elders had. They heard of a blue planet where people argued loudly, worked hard, fell often, and kept reaching out a hand afterward. Some still feared. Some still watched with narrow eyes. But the name in the archive had changed, and with it, the path ahead. On a clear night under a familiar sky, Somewhere on Earth, a child lay in a quiet field and looked up. The stars glittered like countless questions. The child did not know of council votes or ancient warnings. The child only knew that those lights were real, and that people from their world had gone out there and spoken. The wind moved softly through the grass. The world turned. And for the first time in a very long time, the true name of Earth did not belong only to the fearful past or to forgotten warnings. It belonged to the living, to those who walked on its ground and chose, again and again, to stand together beneath one sky, even as they reached for many others.